Hi, welcome to Savi's Fashion Studio. I'm Savita. This class is about sewing machine needles for your electric home sewing machines. Though we may feel needles are insignificant, they are very important in sewing. Using a wrong or damaged needle can result in skip stitches, thread breakage, puckering of fabric, or it can even damage your fabric and needle. There are different kinds of needles for different purposes and fabrics, but the most popular being the universal needles, which can be used with different kinds of fabrics and for various projects. Before seeing the different kinds of needles available, let's briefly see how to read the needle package and the anatomy of the needle. First, let's see how to read the needle package. On top, you see the brand name. Here it is Schmidt's, and then you see the needle type. In the lower end, you see the size of the needle. It's mentioned in both European and American sizing system. It can vary from 60 to 120 and 8 to 19. Just above that, you see the needle system. 130 by 705 H means the needle has a flat shank on one side and it's meant for electric home sewing machines. I like these needles because of their high quality and it comes in a nice little pack, and mainly it is color coded, which makes it very easy to identify the type and size of the needle. To remove the needle, slide this, bend it backwards, remove the needle. To close, push it up and slide it back. Before proceeding, let's see the anatomy of the needle. This part is called the shank, and home sewing machine needles have a flat shank on one side. When you insert the needle, the rounded side will be facing you. Below the shank, you see two color bands. The upper color band is for the type of the needle and the lower one is for the size of the needle. This part is called the blade. The blade of the needle can be wider depending on the size of the needle. Bigger the size, wider is the blade. Running along the length of the blade is a groove, which helps in keeping the thread in place as you're sewing. And then we have the point, tip and eye of the needle. The eye of the needle can be longer and wider depending on the type of the needle. For example, in embroidery needles, the eye will be longer and wider, making it easier to use heavier or metallic threads, causing very less friction. Behind the eye is an indentation which is called the scarf. Now, how to select the right needle? Needle selection is based on the fabric used, the thread used, and the technique used while sewing. As mentioned earlier, the most popular needles are the universal needles with sizes ranging from 8 to 19, and you may be able to sew any fabric with universal needles. But for professional looking results, you may need to select specific needle meant for the purpose. For example, these are Gutermann embroidery threads, and if I feel this is coarse unlike the normal sewing thread, using this with a normal sewing machine needle may lead to friction which may cause thread breakage or poor sewing. So it's good to use embroidery or metallic needle. Thinner or lighter the fabric, use smaller size needle. For example, for a fabric like georgette, you can use size 10 needle, and for medium weight fabric like cotton you can use 12 or 14 size needle, and for thicker cottons, denim or canvas, you can use 16 or 18 size needle. Apart from this, there is also stretch and jersey needles. Stretch needles is usually used for very stretchy fabric or elastic, and jersey needles for knit and slightly stretchy fabrics. But before using it for your garment, try it on scrap and see which is the most suitable needle for your project. These are also called ballpoint needles because their tips are slightly rounded, which pushes the threads aside as they sew instead of piercing and damaging the thread. You may be able to sew knit or stretchy fabric with universal needles, but sometimes you may encounter skip stitches, and this can be avoided with stretch or jersey needles. Now let's see how the stretch and jersey needles work. First, I'm using a universal needle. This is size 12, just to show you the difference between the stitches, and I'm using a super stretch fabric. There are two layers of fabric, and I'm using a contrast thread so that you can clearly see the stitches. Now I'm sewing with an universal needle and I'm doing a zigzag stitch. Now I'm doing the straight stitch. Now I'll be using stretch needle. First let me do the zigzag stitch. Now let me also do the straight stitch. Now let me sew with the jersey needle. Now I'm doing the straight stitch with the jersey needle. These two lines of stitches were done with universal needle, and you can see skip stitches here and also in the straight stitch, and these two lines were sewn using the stretch needle and there are no skip stitches. And again this was sewn with jersey needle, and I got one skip stitch in zigzag and the straight stitch was fine. I would use a stretch needle for this fabric. So it's good to have stretch as well as a jersey needle, and before sewing the garment you'll need to try on a scrap to see which is most suitable for your project. Now these are the three needles I used: jersey, universal and stretch. When you see these needles, they may all look the same, but small differences in the tip of the needle and the scarf of the needle or the eye of the needle makes all the difference in the sewing. The differences in the needles may not be visible to the naked eye, but there are differences and that makes the difference in sewing. When to change the needle? Usually it is said the needle needs to be changed after 8 to 12 hours of sewing, but you would need to use your judgment. When you're sewing, if you hear a different sound, or if the thread keeps breaking, or if you see puckering in the fabric, then it is time to change the needle. We invest a lot of amount on the machine and the fabrics, but we normally ignore the needle. Most of the problems can be resolved by changing the needle or using the right needle. Now if you see here, there is puckering and also the fabric is damaged. When I see the needle, it looks absolutely fine, but this could happen if the tip of the needle is damaged. So this means it's time for me to change the needle. Thanks for watching this class. See you soon in the next class. Till then, happy sewing.